Hey everybody, won't always bored, never boring. Today I'm going to be talking about The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring, Battle in Balin's Tomb, a self-contained Lord of the Rings game from Games Workshop, which went on general release on the 4th of December. This is the first Games Workshop product in a little while that I have been really excited about. I ordered my copy from Element Games, which is the company that I run affiliate links for in my video descriptions. It is a self-contained two-player skirmish game with a Lord of the Rings theme. Really simple entry-level rules, which means parents can play it with their children and have a lot of fun with it. And it was priced quite competitively as well. It was £45 full retail price. Many places were listing it for £36, and as I accrue store credit with Element Games, I actually managed to get my copy for less than £30, which is pretty impressive considering it includes 22 Citadel miniatures, which we'll be taking a look at in a moment. As I've already mentioned, this is a two-player skirmish game. Very simple rules, should play in 30 to 45 minutes according to the box cover, and that seems about right. And on the cover, we have Aragorn preparing to fire his arrow through the doorway as the goblins break into the tomb. And I hope you like that image because you're going to see it quite a bit in this game. Because they've used it on the cover of the rules book, and they've used it on the back of the character cards. And not just the character cards for the Fellowship either. But you do get a big full-size rulebook. It's only 8 pages long because the rules are very simple. And in keeping with the theme of this being an entry-level game with nice simple rules, they have included massive images to illustrate every rule in the game. I think my one gripe about the layout of the rules is that it includes this table on page 7. This table tells you how many cards the Goblin player draws each round. And while it makes sense to include that information in the rules book here, I think this information could have easily been put on the board itself, as you will see when I show you the board in a moment. And speaking of the board, here it is. It's a good size, it's a quad fold, it's on nice sturdy card. I do have a few minor grievances with it. First of all, the art itself is a little bit dark. It's nice art, but a little bit difficult to see exactly what's going on. But more of a concern is there are certain areas of the board which are line of sight blocking and movement blocking. We have a pillar here and a pillar here, for example, and they have marked those out with red lines. And for someone like me, who is red-green colorblind, that is not easy to see, especially when the board is laid out. You're sitting a little bit back from the board, your lighting isn't perfect. And it's something Games Workshop do a lot, and I think they need to start finding another way to mark out blocking terrain, because a red line, especially a thin red line, doesn't really cut it, and they should be doing more. But here's the board folded out. As you can see, it is a good size. It's marked out with a grid for 25mm bases, which most of the miniatures will come on, everything except for the troll. And you can see that there are certain areas on the board that are marked out. We have a space here labelled troll, and then we have spaces for all of the Fellowship, and that indicates where those miniatures will start in the scenario. And again, that is a little bit annoying for two reasons really. First of all, you have writing on the board, and while that does make setup nice and easy, it does detract from the overall beauty of the board. It ruins the aesthetic a little bit having those words on the board. Secondly, it is an indication that every time you play this game, the setup is the same. Your characters will always begin in the same positions. And while how the battle unfolds will change based on cards that are drawn and things like that, you are effectively always playing the same scenario in the same tomb with the same layout and the same starting positions. The other thing I wanted to note is along the top here, you do have your turn tracker. Each turn you will advance a little ring along that track. The heroes are trying to survive for 12 turns. And as I've already shown you, there is a table in the rules book showing how many cards the Goblin player draws each turn. I don't know why they didn't include that information on the turn tracker. It would have been very easy to have a little secondary number, a small number next to the turn number, just as a reminder so you didn't have to go back to the rules book and check there. I'm sure after a certain number of games you'll remember anyway, but it's something that if you are going to write the names of the Fellowship all over the board itself, why omit that other important piece of information from the sidebar? Moving on, let's talk briefly about the 22 miniatures you get in this game. It should be noted there is no bubble wrap in the box, and one of my goblins was a little bit damaged coming out of the box. It had got bashed in transit. That's not something I've seen that often with Games Workshop miniatures, but can happen. They did make the effort to put this sheet of card here in between the miniatures and the card components. So you can see we have some scratching on this card here, and in fact it's quite badly dented there. But that did mean that none of the miniatures managed to get through and damage the cards underneath. And the reverse of the card has the build instructions for these miniatures, and these miniatures are incredibly easy to put together. Some of them are single piece, some of them are 2 pieces. It's only the troll that has more than 2 pieces and might take more than a few seconds to pop together. And it should be noted these models will go together without glue, they are push fit. So first up you get the Fellowship in a glorious blue colour. Bear in mind this game had a full retail price of £45. Games Workshop sells this frame for £30. So just with this frame alone, you've almost covered the cost of the game. And the Middle-earth line of miniatures are really nice. They're very simple, very clean, very accurate to the movies. I like them a lot. If you are used to modern Games Workshop miniatures and you haven't ever delved into the Middle-earth line of miniatures, you might be a little bit surprised by the scale. For example, here is one of the most recent Auroch miniatures from Age of Sigmar, and you can see he is quite a bit bigger than Aragorn there. And of course, next to our little hobbit friends, he is a giant, which you would expect. But yes, these miniatures are much more realistic, and they do not suffer from the scale creep that other Games Workshop miniatures do. Next up, you get a frame of 12 goblins. You get 4 with bows and arrows, 4 with spears, and 4 with swords and shields. Again, very simple but very nicely detailed. I had a little bit of damage on one of mine, just this one here. The sword handle is a little bit broken, just the very end of the hilt had snapped off. And in terms of price, Games Workshop charged £26 for a box of 24 of these goblins. So this frame of 12, you're looking at £13 retail. And I think this archer is possibly my favourite just because of his crazy helmet. And finally, you get the glorious cave troll in grey. This miniature has numerous parts, and it also has a weapon option. You can either assemble it holding the club or holding the trident here. And this miniature retails for £18.50. So you can see that with a £30 frame of Fellowship miniatures, a £13 frame of Goblin miniatures, and an £18.50 frame of Cave Troll, there's quite a decent saving. So here we go, we're just going to pop out Aragorn and see how he goes together. We have our side cutters here. I'm going to just snip here and here. And then we have one more connector up here. And then we have Aragorn's sword arm here, so we're going to clip in here. So now we have our 2 pieces, and we just need to match up the peg with the hole here and get it in such a way that it will line up and make it look like Aragorn is swinging his sword. And while that has pushed together, and you can see the hands match up there, there is an ugly gap up here. We will need to use a little bit of green stuff there. And then of course we just need to push Aragorn into one of our 25mm bases. He just pops in like that, and he is good to go. Of course he will need some cleanup. We will need to fill that gap if we're going to paint him, but just as a playing piece, he is ready. Next up, you get a set of custom dice. You get 2 red, 3 blue, and 1 grey. The blue ones are for the Fellowship, and they have 3 different symbols on them. They have Sting on one side, they have the 1 ring on one side, and they have a shield. The 2 red dice are for the goblins and the troll, and they have 3 symbols too. We have a goblin scimitar, we have the Eye of Sauron, and we have a goblin shield. And then finally you get a cave troll dice. This is only rolled by the cave troll, and it has a whole bunch of extra maces and shields on it, just making the cave troll much tougher and much more dangerous. And these dice are the heart of the game. They are the main mechanism that drives the skirmish rules, and they are going to be very familiar to anybody who has ever played Hero Quest. It is absolutely, as you would expect from looking at the dice, comparing swords to shields. It really is a case of the attacker will roll their attack dice and count up the number of swords. If they roll a ring, if they're a Fellowship player, or the Eye of Sauron, if they're a Goblin player, they can treat those as a wild. So if you're attacking, you would use your ring as additional swords. And then the defender rolls dice looking to get shields. Each shield will cancel out 1 hit. Any leftover hits are applied as damage. Most of the Fellowship and the Cave Troll can take multiple wounds, whereas Goblins and Hobbits tend to go down with just a single hit. It's a tried and tested way of using attack dice, and it works really well for a really simple, self-contained skirmish game like this one. In fact, the entire rule set for this game is incredibly easy to understand. The Goblins always take the first turn in a round. In a turn, you get to activate every miniature on the board. Miniatures can move and attack, or attack then move. You can pretty much move anywhere on the board except through pillars. If you are adjacent to an enemy and you move away, they get to take an attack of opportunity, and you're not allowed to defend against that. Line of sight is generally only blocked by pillars or the cave troll because he's massive. However, if you are targeting a goblin or a hobbit, then also the tomb itself will block line of sight, as will other miniatures. And that's it, other than the fact that every miniature on the board has at least one special rule. And I'm not going to go through every character in this video because that would be incredibly long and tedious, but I'm just going to show you Frodo here as an example. First of all, we have our stat line. We have the number of spaces you can move, and that includes diagonally, the number of dice you roll when attacking and the colour of the dice, the number of dice you roll when defending, and how many wounds you can take before you die. Below that you have the always on ability. In this case we have the ability enemies may only attack Frodo if they are adjacent to him. Finally, every Fellowship character also has a One Ring ability, which they can activate if they roll the One Ring. As I've already mentioned, the One Ring is normally a wild card. You can use it to represent swords or shields, but it also has the opportunity to trigger these special abilities. In the case of Frodo, it says, if you roll the ring when making a defend roll, you can put on the ring. Frodo will ignore all wounds for the whole attack, and also Frodo may move up to 3 squares. As you can see, it's incredibly difficult to hit Frodo. So every single member of the Fellowship has 2 abilities, that always on ability and a One Ring ability. Here we have Boromir, my favourite character by a country mile. His ability is that any members of the Fellowship may re-roll 1 dice when defending if they're adjacent to Boromir, because Boromir helps them out. He also has his One Ring ability, where if you roll the One Ring when you are making an attack roll, you can shield bash an adjacent goblin to move them 1 space. He's just awesome. All of the evil miniatures also get special abilities, but they don't get any special abilities that activate when the Eye of Sauron is rolled. They just have an always on ability in addition to their stat line. For example, we have here the Cave Troll, who has the ability that he may attack up to 3 squares away because he's got a really long reach. However, if he attacks anything adjacent, he will roll 2 red dice plus the grey Cave Troll dice, rather than just his regular 2 red dice. Also, I did want to point out, I really like the layout of these cards. I like the fact that it shows you the miniature, so it's easy to pick out the miniature on the board, but also I did poke fun earlier in the video of the fact they reused that image of Aragorn so much, but you can see here that in the background of every character card, there is an image of that character from the movie. While many of the combatants in this skirmish will die from a single hit, some have more than 1 wound, as we've already seen, so there is a sheet of tokens included with the game, and these are a decent thickness and they're an okay size. They are entirely functional, they do exactly what they need to do, but really, a graphic designer here spent all of 5 minutes putting a number in the middle of a round token. Finally, we have the bit that adds the variety. As I've already mentioned, there is only 1 scenario in this game. You are always fighting in Balin's tomb, you are always starting in the same positions in the tomb, and you're facing the same goblins and cave troll. But there is some variety built into the game because you get this deck of goblin cards. Each turn from turn 2 onwards, the goblin player will draw 1 or more of these cards and follow the instructions. They basically tell them how many reinforcements are coming into play. This one here says drums in the deep. The goblin player places any 1 Moria goblin next to the well. Pretty straightforward stuff. It really just dictates whether the goblins arrive from the main gates, whether they arrive from the well, or whether they arrive from trapdoors on the board. And of course, there is 1 card in the deck that summons the cave troll. The heroes will only ever face 1 cave troll, and 1 is more than enough because it's a beast. You will notice on these cards that, again, they haven't really gone to town with the artwork. They have actually only just used the image to indicate where on the board you place your reinforcements. So this one shows you that you place the troll on the space marked troll, just in case you couldn't figure it out. While this goblin ambush card, which says you can place 1 Moria goblin next to each of the trapdoors, has images of the trapdoors, just in case you couldn't figure out what a trapdoor was. And yes, I'm being a touch facetious. The cards are perfectly functional, they're very clear what you need to do, and that's the most important thing with a card like this. But it would have been nice to see a few more images from the movie on these cards. Although I do appreciate that that sort of thing can cost money. Overall, I would say in terms of the aesthetic of this game, more than anything they have gone for ease of use. The cards are very clear to read and understand. It's very easy to determine which miniature you're in control of and which miniature you're moving. It's really only the board itself and those red lines around the pillars and the slightly dark artwork, which is a little bit of a hindrance to a smooth gameplay experience. But talking about a smooth gameplay experience, that really is what you're getting here. It's very, very simple to set the game up. You know exactly where you're placing your miniatures because it says exactly where they go on the board. You have a card for every miniature that you have in play with very clearly laid out instructions. On your turn, you're activating every miniature you have control of, and you are moving and attacking or attacking then moving. Line of sight is incredibly simple. The special abilities that each character have make them all feel unique. They all have something they can do. They have something they excel at. And I just think it is a very simple, clean rule set. And anybody who follows my channel knows that I am a big fan of those simple, streamlined rule sets that allow you to push the rules off the table so you can just play the game. I do feel they could have done more to make the game replayable. They have done something that they've done numerous times before with this sort of game. They have included some challenges for each side. For example, there's a challenge for the Fellowship to win the game without losing any members of the team, and a special reward for the goblins to shoot and kill Legolas with an archer, just to prove that goblins are the bestest with the bows. So there's a little bit of built-in replayability there as well, but there's more they could have done. It would have been nice to have some furniture elements that you could move around the board, and I'm more than likely going to tinker with the idea of including some of my Mantic Games terrain crate stuff in this game, just to create different board layouts, narrow little tunnels for people to fight through, extra blocking terrain to break up the archery, just stuff like that. But really, that wasn't what they were going for with this design. It seems to be the case that they were going for the idea of making a game where you play the game, not the rules. And I can appreciate that, especially as it has a wonderful theme that I'm a big fan of. But really, I think that's all I've got to say about this one for now. It's a cool little game, something that I can sit down and play with my daughter, have a quick adventure in the world of the Lord of the Rings, and then pack it back in the box and play something else. And of course, it's a really good source of miniatures for the Middle-earth strategy battle game as well. If you've liked the video, please consider pressing the like button. If you've really liked the video, please consider subscribing if you don't already do so. And hopefully, I will see you all again very soon. Bye bye everyone. Bye bye.